In a must-win game, North Central took down 15th-ranked Illinois Wesleyan to give themselves a chance at a postseason berth. But the Cardinals will now need help from the team they just beat. I'm Kevin Jackman. We'll get into all that and more next on the Red Zone. A perfect record for Illinois Wesleyan on the line as they host North Central on a cold, damp day at Tucci Field. Cardinals in a must-win scenario, but they'll have to stop Titan receiver Artie Kakin, who leads the conference in receiving yards and touchdowns. First drive of the game for the Titans, and it doesn't end well as the snap is just a bit high and outside. The punter, Connor Higgins, has to just cover it up, and the Cardinals open up the game with 2 points. NCC gets the ball right back and pounds it all the way inside the red zone, but on 3rd and 7, Dylan Warden gets tipped, and defensive end William Hargrove plucks it for the pick, but the Titans' offensive drive would stall from there. Next Cardinal possession. Who needs to risk throwing it when you have Austin Brunig? And I'm thinking Austin may have been Superman for this year's Halloween game because he flies into the end zone. 9-0 NCC on top in the first quarter. Wesleyan back with it, and Jack Warner finally finding his top target, hitting Kakin down the seam on a beautiful ball between Rich Zerngebel and Kevin Nalewski. Ball down at the 10. Next play, and it's Warner going to the back corner, connecting with Austin Wagner to bring the score back to within 2. Cardinals can't produce points on the next drive, so they do the next best thing, and that's have Dom Zavalli coffin corner the Titans at the 1-yard line. Titans with their backs against the goal line, getting some relief from Maurice Shoemaker-Gilmore, but Justin Stursma swings a perfectly placed punch and whacks the rock out. Cardinals jump on top of it. Warden on 3rd and long, finding his big target, Ryan Kuhl, to pick up the first down. And a few plays later, Matt Randolph finishes off the drive by backing it up into the end zone. Cardinals lead 16-7. Another failed Titan drive leaves the Cardinals in good position as the first half winds to a close. Warden able to stay on his feet after getting tripped up, but that would only cost the Cards more yards. Now a 44-yard attempt for Dom Zavalli, and he's just off to the left, no good. And we go to half with a 16-7 score. Second half going about as well as the first for the Titans. Another bad snap. This time Al Willett able to collect and cash in his winnings. Cardinals take a sizable 23-7 lead over the 7-0 Titans. Wesleyan able to draw back to within a score, so the Cardinals have to go back to work. Warden finds Alex Ulmer not once but twice on this drive, both grabs over 10 yards for the Cardinals' leading receiver, which helps Zavalli set back up, and this time he sends it through. 26-15 the score in the third quarter. NCC looking to make a stop, and boy do they ever. Warner misfires before nearly finding Shoemaker-Gilmore, but he gets knocked away by Brandon Kibbe. Tom Sorrell rips through a block on 3rd down to make a stop, and then last week's surprise contributor Eric Wilson emerges and takes down Warner to turn the ball over on downs. Late fourth quarter, back to Brunig because, well, why not? Cardinals run away to end the Titans' perfect season and to keep their own postseason dreams alive, winning this one 33-15. Welcome inside the Red Zone, joined as always by head football coach Jeff Thorne. And coach, in an absolute must-win game, your team came out with that fire and that intensity, and you overcame Illinois Wesleyan. And how impressed were you after that big win?
Impressed would probably not be the right word. I expected it, quite frankly. I expected our guys to come out and play really hard, play Cardinal football. We talked during the week, and Coach Murray alluded to it, adversity not building character. A lot of times you hear adversity builds character, and we kind of spun it, and we've heard this before, maybe you have too, but adversity can reveal character too, and I think Saturday was a great demonstration of the character of our young men, and we've been through some difficult situations this year. It's been a challenging year, some heartbreaking losses, some really exciting games, but to come up after the disappointment of the Wheaton game and play as hard and as well as we did Saturday was it was fun to watch, and just proud of them.
Now, you guys had dropped 3 games against ranked opponents, and all of them were, like you said, in kind of heartbreaking fashion.
How did you buck that trend in this game? Because obviously that might be in the back of some of the players' minds, but it didn't show. I mean, you can tell it didn't show.
We got off to a good start. I think our defense set the tone again with just slamming the door immediately on the very first possession. They have a bad snap, and their couple of mistakes hurt them really bad, and we capitalized by getting nine free points from our punt return unit. So that was great. That certainly helped. And offensively, it wasn't all that exciting. We managed the football. We moved the ball enough, and our punter did a great job. Dom Zavalia did a phenomenal job of pinning Wesleyan deep. We pinned him at the 1 yard line. I think the second time we had him inside the 10. We talked about field position being a huge part in a game like that where the weather is an issue, and our guys did a great job managing that.
I want to talk about Dom, but later on, because I want to get to the defense first. 15 points against Illinois Wesleyan. This team has been really good this year. 7-0 going into this game, and the defense held up their end of the bargain. And Brandon Kibbe, just seems like every week he comes up with a big play against a big team. Third pick of the season in this game. How big has he been for your defense? He's
been great, and I couldn't be more thrilled for a guy than I am for Brandon, because last year he didn't get a lot of playing time. During the spring, he was just a workhorse. A lot of our corners had gotten hurt in the spring, and there were times we only had 3 corners, and Brandon would take rep after rep after rep along with Larry Holman, and the work that he put in is paying off, and you're seeing the results.
Now, on the front end of that defense, 4 sacks in this game. You provided a lot of pressure, especially in the run game as well. But one guy in particular we talked about last week, we'll talk about again right now. Eric Wilson, 5 sacks in the last 2 weeks. I mean, where does this guy come from? This is it's fun to watch.
Like we talked about last week, it's that explosive speed that he's got off the edge, and he's using technique now on top of it. So credit our coaching staff with scheming up some blitzes that are getting him free. And, I think a guy that hasn't gotten a lot of mention with our pressures is Tommy Sora. This week, he didn't get a sack, but he was there many, many times. He did a great job of keeping the quarterback in the pocket when he maybe was starting to escape. Those types of things that go unnoticed are really a big part of the sacks that we do get.
Right.
The unsung heroes, so to speak.
Now, on the offense, one guy that we have talked a lot about is Austin Brunig. Rolled again in this game, was kind of stopped short of maybe his expectations against Wheaton. Came back with a vengeance in this one. What did you guys see? How did he get back to rolling? How did that offensive line get back to the way they were performing?
We still didn't have a great day running the football. We were better than we were against Wheaton. But Austin just he's showing patience, waiting for those holes to develop, and then it's just that explosive speed that he's got once the seam is there, and he has the ability to explode through the hole.
Now, you mentioned the special teams. Dom Zavalia was one part of that. They had those 2 unforced mistakes on the punt snaps, but you guys took advantage of them.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing. The one play by Al Wilt, we'll get to that in a second in the next segment. But, special teams play can change the course of a game. How big was it for Dom Zavalia to flip the field position, and how big was it for you guys to capitalize on those 2 big mistakes?
It was something that we talked about while we were still at the hotel before leaving for the game. The special teams meeting was the importance that those units were going to play, again, with field position. And field position swings mightily with great special teams. And we've been fortunate for a number of years to be really strong in all 4 areas. And it showed up on Saturday, and it really won us the football game.
Now, you guys took care of business. You still have 2 more wins to get, but you need some help to get into the playoffs. Are you confident, if you do get in, that this team can really make some noise in the D3 football playoffs?
Absolutely. We've played with some really, really good football teams. Wesley is perennially a top 5 team. They've been to the semifinals. I can't count how many times, and we were a 2-minute drive away from winning that game. Platteville's from a great conference and a great program, had a 21-point lead with 11 minutes left in the game and found a way to lose. Give them credit. But and then Wheaton. Wheaton is as good as anybody we've played. And we played right with them. We just didn't make the plays when we needed to. So we're very confident as a program that we can play with anybody. But as we've discussed, playing with them and beating them are 2 different things, and we need to start winning those games. We just hope we get an opportunity to do that.
Well, we'll see. We'll find out on Saturday. We'll get into that and more in the next segment. We'll also break down some tape. We'll be right back on the Red Zone. Back here on the Red Zone, and time to break down some tape. And Coach, the first play I want to get to, we've already talked about it, is that fumble recovery. Al Willett picks it up. He had a big game on special teams in this one. Kind of seems like a guy that the team rallies around. That he's a really well-liked guy in the locker room. How much fun was it for you as the coaching staff to see a guy like him really perform well? And I mean, he took, I think, Player of the Week honors at North Central.
For the conference, for the whole conference, yeah. Couldn't be happier for a young man than I am for Al. He is a wonderful, wonderful young man, involved in a lot of different things on campus. He's extremely talented as a musician, very good football player. But yeah, our guys rally around him. He may be the most well-liked guy on the team. He's an RA on campus. So again, a guy that's just heavily involved and well-respected across the whole campus community. So to see him get that score, he also had a couple more tackles on special teams, big hits. Really, really excited for him, and that CCIW Player of the Week honor is well-deserved.
Now, we talked about in this particular play, it was Hunter LeDuc who came in and really made it an interesting play. Otherwise, you might have had a first-and-goal situation. How big was that, and how much of how much credit did he get after that particular play?
In the press box, I mentioned it right away to other coaches. I said, boy, LeDuc made a great play there. Because their punter had an angle and looked like he was going to recover the ball, and Hunter comes out of nowhere. Again, a guy that can really run. He's fast. And he makes it a contested situation. The ball squirts free. Al picks it up and scores, and made it a really easy scoring drive for the offense.
Now, talk about another scoring drive. The second play I want to get to is the Austin Brunig touchdown run. He did quite a bit of work to get into the end zone on this run, and it looked like a run off the left side of the offensive line. He doesn't shy away from going between the tackles, which is fun to watch for a guy with his speed. But once he gets to that second level, it's fun to watch, and he got a couple shoestring tackles that he was able to slip out of.
Yeah, Austin's really good going to the goal line. You know, a lot of guys want to get to the perimeter, and he's good at that too, but he has no problem running between the tackles, and when he finds a seam, that explosive speed comes in handy. And he's able to break some tackles, and he found the end zone again.
He did it twice on the afternoon. The second run was almost just as impressive as the first one. When you go against these teams, these elite teams, is he kind of the focal point, saying it's time to get him the football when we need to absolutely move it?
You know, it's more just our running game. We have to. We're a team that wants to run the football and throw play action off of our running game and things like that. So it's an emphasis program-wide, regardless of who the running back is. We've got to get our running game going. Austin has been so productive that he's the guy that is going to get the first crack at it.
Now, we talked about this as well. Dom Zavalia has been fantastic as a punter all season long. He did it even more incredibly in this game because he downed it at the one. He put it perfectly, and he did it a couple times. Talk about field position. He did it perfectly. Huge
play in the game. You know, from a defensive standpoint, when you know the offense has to go 99 yards to score a touchdown, you feel a little bit more confident about your ability to get a stop. And Dom's been great, as I mentioned, all season long with punting and pinning people. I can't remember what game it was. Maybe it was Wesley, where he averaged like 50 yards a punt. Maybe it was 46, a huge number. So he's come up big in the big games with his punting.
Now I want to shift the attention away from Illinois Wesleyan and now towards Augustana, because that's the next opponent. As you're preparing for them, what do they do really well that you guys have to kind of prepare for?
Defensively, they're second in the conference in total defense. So they've really done a nice job playing a lot of base defense. They're bringing pressures and forcing the offense to react. Offensively, they've got a really dynamic quarterback that runs around and is extremely fast. So we'll have our hands full containing him. And offensively, we've got to find a way to get our running game going and really get back to a little bit more balance offensively than what we've seen the last couple weeks.
I know your guys' focus is on Augustana, but how much conversation in the locker room has been about this big Wheaton-Illinois Wesleyan football game this Saturday? Because obviously there's a lot of implications that come with it.
Not a lot at all. You know, I mean, we've got to go and we've got to beat Augustana, and if we're able to do that, then we've got to go and beat Elmhurst before any of that other stuff matters. So we're concerned with our own business. Certainly in the back of your mind, you're hoping for a little bit of help, and if that happens, great. If it doesn't, you know, so be it.
Best of luck down in Rock Island this week, and hopefully Illinois Wesleyan can pull out a win as well.
That'd be nice.
Fun to watch.
Yep. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for stopping by, Coach. Up next, we have Ryan Kuhl and Tyler Oakley stopping by, so we'll be right back on the Red Zone.
Before we sit down with the players, it's time for this week's Play of the Game. Special teams don't get enough recognition, so we're giving it to them right here. Dom Zavalia punts it to the goal line where Mike Zebold knocks it backwards for Jake Radick to jump on it, and it works to perfection. On a rainy day, the Cardinals won the battle for field position, and the team's unit claims the Play of the Game.
Back, and we have Ryan Kuhl and Tyler Oakley here on set. And Ryan, I want to start with you. Big win against Illinois Wesleyan. I can only imagine you guys were fired up in the locker room. You guys were fired up on the field after the game. What was the level of excitement following that big win?
Oh, there's a ton of excitement going on in the locker room and after the game on the field, especially with John Egan getting into it a little bit with the Illinois Wesleyan guy at the end of the game there. I think there was just a lot of emotion. We played with a lot of passion. And we also were just out there having fun, playing in the rain that we rarely get to do. I think all the guys enjoyed the win.
Now, Tyler, you talk about the intensity, Ryan. The intensity was there for the full 60 minutes of this big game. It wasn't Wheaton. It wasn't the battle for the Little Brass Belt, but did it feel like that intense rivalry when you were out on the field?
Absolutely. I mean, we have a couple seniors that talked to us before the game about how their college decisions came between North Central and Wesleyan, so it was important to them. And our defensive coordinator, Coach Murray, he was a former coach there, so you know, it's just a huge game for him. So we were fired up. And then with the history in 2013 and 11 with them crossing the hash and running at us. So, I mean, there was so much fuel for our fire for that game.
It's hard not to get motivated and get up for that game, I'm sure. Ryan, the offense continues to grind out points. It just seems like every week the running game is producing and the passing game comes up big when you guys have to. You guys are young as a unit. You guys don't have very many seniors. It's the two guards on the offensive line, but you guys have found a way to put up points and to win games. For you, how impressive is that, and how have you guys been able to find that rhythm so early on in your collegiate careers?
Well, I think Austin does a great job at reading the schemes in the offensive line. I mean, Coach always reams on him for not following or not going to the hole that he's supposed to, but I mean, when you have his speed, him on the outside, he's gone if he hits it straight up field. But me, Dylan, Ulmer, we have Kyle and D coming in this year, and then Corey Hardeman has really stepped up big. And I think we're all close as a unit. We're like brothers to each other. And I think that us getting along with Dylan and then Justin coming in as a freshman, I think we just all kind of clicked. And I think Ulmer stepped up big, taking leadership in the receivers, and Dylan has been a leader with his voice too lately, which is rare that you don't see. So.
Now, a lot of fans are reminded of Pete Sorensen when they see you on the field. The build, attacking the ball at its high point. You got to play with Pete for a year. What have you taken away from one of the best receivers in Cardinal history?
I mean, I've taken a lot away from him. He was a great leader. Showed me everything that I needed to know, taught me the playbook, taught me correct footwork, everything like that. And I think that playing next to him really gave me a lot of confidence for the future, seeing what he was able to accomplish from his junior to senior year, basically, because he told me he barely got any playing time his freshman year. And it just shows like hard work really pays off, and I think that's very influential, and I think it can carry on into my career playing at North Central.
Now, Tyler, injuries have kind of taken a bite out of your season, but you're able to return for the biggest part of the schedule in Wheaton and Illinois Wesleyan. When you're on the field, it seems like you're just about everywhere. How excited were you to be able to get back onto the field for those two big games and get out and start running around like you were for the first couple games?
Yeah, I mean, when I got hurt, it was like devastating. The doctor didn't know what happened, but immediately I just wanted to get back out there with my guys and just do whatever I could to help the defense, because Coach harped on us that he wanted the program to be known as defensive first. So once I got the clear and came and talked to Coach, we were all fired up.
Now, it seems like you guys are fast and strong, 1 through 11 on that defense. You guys are clicking on all cylinders right now. How is it that you guys have been able to find so much kind of cohesion on the defensive side? What player or players have kind of stepped up into a leadership role on that side of the football?
Yeah, I'd have to say Richie at safety. He's a vocal leader for sure. I mean, before the game, after the game, during the game, making checks, calls, you know, we're always there to help him too. I mean, he makes a mistake or an error, you know, Richie, rub it off. I mean, everybody looks up to you, so you can't have your head down. And I'd have to say Tommy Sora, like Coach was saying earlier, he goes unnoticed, but he's always in the right spot. He studies a lot of film, and he's just a great teammate.
I asked Steve Laramitis after the game about the 2 dropped interceptions that Rich had right in his gloves. Did you guys give him any flack after the game?
Yeah. After the plays, he's like, I was wearing a hand warmer, and he's like, I can't feel my hands. Let me warm them up.
You can't blame it on that.
Yeah, and we were all like, Rich, if you don't want to catch it, let us get one or something. So he played very well.
Now, Ryan, you need to win the next 2 games, but what have you talked about as far as the Illinois Wesleyan-Wheaton game goes? Because that has some implications for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, Coach was telling us that Wheaton hasn't won there in the past, or they're 0-5 in the last 5 meetings there. And I think that we're just going to focus on winning these last 2 games. That's our job. We can't control what Wheaton does. We can't control what Illinois Wesleyan's going to do. And at the end of the game, we were telling Illinois Wesleyan to go get them, go beat them. Like, give yourselves a shot, too, at getting into the playoffs. And I think that they'll play their game and we'll play our game. And I think that we just come in with confidence these next 2 games and just see what happens at the end of those 2 games.
Now, Tyler, last thing for you guys. You come off an intense, a physical game against Illinois Wesleyan, a couple of games in Wheaton and Illinois Wesleyan. You go into 2 games that are against opponents that maybe aren't the same quality as those 2 teams. But how do you take care of business against those 2 teams without that extra juice of that rivalry?
Yeah, I mean, like Coach said, we can only control what we can right now, and right now it's Augustana. So we can't overlook them because Coach told us a little history about how when the program got rolling, we were 2-1, and they came in and smacked us 65-0. So, I mean, you got to show up on Saturdays, and we'll be fine.
Best of luck in Rock Island, guys. It's going to be fun to watch. Thanks for stopping by. Clark Tuscher swings by to update us on Cardinal Athletics next on the Red Zone.
As autumn takes its final breath before giving way to winter, many of North Central's sports teams have closed up shop for the year. So with that in mind, let's take a look back at the seasons that were. We start on the pitch with the women's soccer team. Returning every starter from a year ago, the Cardinals raced quickly out of the gate to a 5-1 record. NCC was led by strong play from Jessica DeJong on offense and Nikki Seaton in goal. Finishing 7-9-1, the Cardinals missed the conference tournament, but return a strong young core next year. Shifting to golf, the men started the season cold but gained consistently stronger play from their younger golfers over the course of the season to finish on a high note at Milliken's Big Blue Fall Classic, placing 5th out of 12 teams. Moving to the tennis courts, more youth led to a promising finish. Led by juniors Katie Drone and Miranda Grizafi, the Cardinals rounded out their season 4th in the CCIW tournament. Finally, in the hardwood, the women's volleyball team started on a torrid winning streak of 7 matches and downright dominated non-conference teams to the tune of a 20-8 mark. Unfortunately, the CCIW saw one of its strongest seasons, leaving the Cardinals 2-5 in outside postseason play. Still in action are men's and women's cross country, men's soccer, and football. Best of luck to those teams as they continue on.
When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke.
I'm Paul George, and I want you to spot a stroke fast.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911.
Protect the ones you love.
Spot a stroke fast.
We welcome Clark Tuscher onto the program. Clark, the old saying goes, it's not how you start, it's how you finish, and the men's soccer team is the epitome of that. They lost 10 games after winning their season opener, but they get into the playoffs with a 4-3 conference mark. What was the excitement level around this team when they found out, hey, we're in the CCIW tournament?
Well, it was a little muted because they lost on senior day to a team that they thought they could beat. So they made it a little tougher on themselves than they had to, and I think they understood that. I think that just just being glad to have a second chance and go and play against a team that we've had a lot of trouble with up at Wheaton. So probably a very business-like approach, I think, this week.
Resilience-wise, have you seen a team in your time at North Central that has battled back from so much adversity early in the season to make a conference tournament?
It's tough to say, for as far down in the bucket as they were, with that kind of a lengthy losing streak to come back and really right the ship at the last possible moment. There aren't very many stories like that.
Now, the women's soccer team, unfortunately, was kind of on the other end of that trend. They started out really well. They faded towards the end of the season. They have a nice young nucleus on that team. Are they confident going into maybe next year? I know it's early, but are they confident thinking, hey, we have a chance to keep improving?
Yeah, they established themselves as a strong defensive team. Now is the challenge is to extend that and add some weapons so that they can be a little more dangerous on offense as well, but diversified in how they attack opponents, and adding some additional recruits on the front end is going to help with that a lot. So I'm sure that's going to be the focus the next few weeks here.
Now, women's volleyball, they were fantastic in the non-conference portion of the schedule, but once they hit conference, it seemed like they kind of hit a wall. 2-5 in conference play. They missed the tournament. They lose some big seniors in Laura Kluk and Amanda Walker, but this is another team that looks like they're kind of set up for the future too. It was a really tough year at the conference. The conference title actually was split 3 ways this year for the first time ever. So, a lot of parity within the conference, and it just comes down to little differences here and there, and they came out on the wrong end. So they're feeling pretty good about the level of talent and their ability to build on that, I think. 22-13, their overall record. It's still pretty strong, even though that was mostly the non-conference. But one team that is true and steady is the men's cross-country team. They win yet another CCIW conference tournament. How many in a row is this now?
42. So the longest current streak in collegiate cross-country. So definitely not the way they thought they would win it. Had 3 freshmen in the top 5 finishers, which they were all in the top 10 overall. So the coaching staff figured that some new guys were going to come out of the woodwork and start helping the team at the end of the season, and it certainly looks like they hit the nail on the head on that one.
Now, the women's team is having some success as well. They have an off week this week before they start preparing for the next step. How do they look?
They came through some injury troubles and are pretty healthy at this point. They've had it's kind of an interesting mix of young people and veterans, and you have somebody like Megan Costanzo way out in front, pushing for individual honors. So they feel pretty good about where they're at heading into what is always a very tough regional meet to try and get to nationals for the 2nd straight year.
The last thing for you, Al Carey's 50th season. Obviously, there's a big push that I'm sure his runners are feeling to kind of win nationals in his 50th season. As far as sports information and the sports department goes, are you guys kind of silently rooting on to try and see Al win in what is a historic year?
Oh, we don't have to root silently. That's one of the things that we're allowed to do publicly. The last person who's thinking about that really is Al. He's really focused in on this group and what he has to do to make sure that they're in position to perform at their best. But we're all really very proud of what he's been able to accomplish during that time, and certainly he deserves every bit of adulation and everything that he gets.
Clark, thanks for stopping by. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That's all the time for this week's edition of the Red Zone. The Cardinals travel to Augustana to face the Vikings this Saturday. Check back for highlights on nctv17.com. For everyone here on the Red Zone, I'm Kevin Jackman saying so long. We'll see you next week on the Red Zone.